So I just want to go over a couple more with slope and y-intercept. So this is day 2 of Slope-intercept, and I'm just going to do a couple off of this worksheet. That is part of your assignment. And so yes, I'm doing some of your homework problems for you, just to refresh your memory and point out a couple more things on this. So let's just start off. Here we go. And what I did is I didn't pick the easiest ones. I tried to pick ones that maybe were a little more complicated, hopefully, and we'll get to that. Okay, so these are the ones that I picked, and if you were in the room, I'd let you pick them, but you're not. So I just picked a couple for you. The first thing we're going to have to do is state the slope and the y-intercept of each equation. It doesn't matter which order we do it in. So looking over here at number 6, what is the y-intercept? I always say the y-intercept first because that's what I'm going to begin with. That's my plot first. And that'd be 4. And what is my slope? Well, it's always the coefficient of the linear term. It's the coefficient of the x term. So the coefficient of the x term is negative 1/3. So that's my y-intercept and that's my slope. Hey, before we go any further on this, notice this is a negative slope. So if I were to graph this, would my line look like this or like this? It's a negative slope, so it would go off in this direction. Okay, it would kind of go off in that direction, where the top tail would be up to the left. And it's always a good idea to kind of check yourself either before or after to see if you graphed it correctly. Okay, so you can see that's not too difficult. Hopefully that's not too much problem. Now on number 7, you can see it's a little different. You see how it's different? See how on all of these other ones, we have y on one side and everything else on the other side. So we have y on side by itself. And this goes back to what we learned about with literal equations. We want to get a variable by itself. So we always want to start by getting y on its side. One side, because remember our slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So we want to get y on one side, everything else on the other. This is going to be your slope. This is going to be your y-intercept. Okay, and when you go to graph, this is where you're going to begin. That's the point you're going to plot. And this tells you how you're going to move. So look at number 7. We have to get it that way. So that means I want to move the negative 2x to the other side. If I want to move it, I'm going to do its opposite. Right now I have a negative 2x, so I'm going to add a 2x to both sides. And let me recommend that you write it in slope-intercept form, meaning I have the variable first and then the constant later, because it's just easier to see. This is my slope, this is my y-intercept. So my y-intercept is negative 1, and my slope is 2. And if we were to graph this, of course, if you ever want to graph, make it as a fraction, put it 2 over 1. It just makes it a little easier. Okay, speaking of which, number 11, it says it wants us to graph a line with a slope of 2 and a y-intercept of negative 3. So we always begin with the negative 3. We're going to plot that. 1, 2, 3. There's negative 3. Now our slope says that it's 2, but remember, whenever we do slope, you want slope to be a fraction. So that's going to be 2 over 1. Whenever we do slope, we want slope to be a fraction, because when this tells us up and down, this tells us left and right. So we're going to start right here. We're going to go up 2 over 1. Now, you can go up 2 and over 1 again, or I like to do the opposite, go back to my y-intercept. Before I went up 2, now I'm going to go down 2. Before I went to the right, now I'm going to go to the left. And of course, we always want to extend that line all the way to the end of our grid, and there's our graph. Okay? Let's look at number 14. On number 14, it's pretty obvious what our y-intercept is, and I like to write it down if it's not written out for me. So my y-intercept is 1. My slope, now look at that. What is the number there? We don't see a number there, but it's got to have a number. Remember what it is? It's negative 1. So I'm going to write my slope, which I'm not going to write. It is negative 1. If I ever see a variable without a coefficient, I know that coefficient is 1. And here it happens to be negative. Now, to make it easier on myself to graph, I'm going to write that as a fraction. So that's negative 1 over 1. Oh, wow, everything is 1. How boring is that? Oh, well, we can do boring. We can do boring. So now y-intercept is 1. My slope is negative 1 over 1, so I'm going to go down 1 and to the right. And we should have looked at this first anyway. This has a negative slope, so see how it's going to be off in this direction? You can see that now that I plotted the second point. And then I'm going to do the opposite, so I'm going to go up 1 and over 1. I'm going to draw a line all the way to the end of our grid and put arrowheads on it. Okay, put arrowheads on it. Good. Number 17, what's our y-intercept? What is our slope? Okay, oh, slope of negative going off this direction. Slope is positive, goes off this direction. See, you always want to kind of look to see where's it going to go. It's a positive slope, and I remember that because my first quadrant has positive x and positive y. So I know my positive goes here, so therefore my negative has to go there. Or you can just base it off the x-axis. Okay, so here we go. Let's plot. We're going to plot y-intercept is 1. And notice y-intercept, it always has to be on the y-axis. Y-intercept is on the y-axis. Now I'm going to use my slope. I'm going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 2 to the right, so that's a positive 2. I'm going to go back to my, I know I could go down 3 and over 2 again. That's always a possibility. But I like to go back. I think it's more fun to do the opposite. So I go back to the y-intercept. Before I went down, now I'm going to go up. Before I went right, now I'm going to go left. And there's my line. Okay, so you are now going to, the rest of today, you are going to be just working on finishing up those 3 worksheets. And if you haven't already done the Schoology, make sure that you do that assignment also. If you have any questions, come see me. You know where to find us. Thanks. Bye.